For tonight's topic, we're going to talk about macro counting. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Coach Rose Peterson. I'm a certified personal trainer, both in person and online, and a certified nutrition coach. I help moms locally in Las Vegas, Nevada, and all over the world shed the weight holding them back from becoming their most energetic and authentic version of themselves so they can go after their deepest desires alongside of motherhood. You can find me at fitandconfidentmoms.com. This is Coach Rose here. I am the Busy Mom's weight loss expert and founder of RP Fitness and Nutrition. Welcome to the group and welcome to our first series of Tuesday Talks. I do trainings on nutrition, mindset, motherhood, motivations. You do not want to miss these trainings, and they're absolutely free. For tonight's topic, we're going to talk about macro counting. I've had so many of you ask me what macro counting is and how to get started with counting macros. Macro counting is kind of like counting your calories if you've heard of counting calories, but it's also tracking the macronutrients of your calories. So it's tracking how much protein, how many carbs, and how many fats that you're eating in a day. And the reason why we would want to do it that way is so that we could make sure that we're not losing muscle while we're losing fat. You are getting enough micronutrients. Also make sure that you're satisfied. The key to macro counting and being successful with it is remembering that calories are king. Why would I count macros if calories are king? When we lose mass, we could also be losing muscle, and we don't want to do that. If we're in a deficit for a long time, sometimes we will lose a little bit of muscle. Help against losing muscle, we want to make sure we have an adequate amount of protein in our diets. The other thing is, especially for my female clients, is that we also want to make sure we get an adequate amount of fats in our diet. If our fats are too low, then it really messes with our hormones. I've had some clients come to me on a very low fat diet before. They were just very low energy, not feeling good. As soon as we increased their fats, then their energy levels were up. Another good reason to include fats in your diet is they are satiating, meaning that you can eat something and you'll feel fuller longer because they take longer to digest. So when we're in a calorie deficit, we want to feel more satisfied. We want to feel satiated so that we're not constantly hungry. So it's important to include those healthy fats. Now, carbohydrates are another one that you could count. I am going to come out with a blanket statement that I do not prescribe low carb diets for my clients. They're just not sustainable long term. Would you like to live on a low carb diet for the rest of your life? If the answer is no, then don't bother starting it. It's going to mess with your mind and it's hard to sustain. So as soon as you eat carbs, that weight is going to come right back. And then it's very discouraging. So one of the reasons why some people might see a lot of initial weight loss at first with low carb is a lot of times when you're on a low carb diet, you inadvertently are also low calorie because it's really hard to eat a bunch of protein and a bunch of fat. The second reason is because you will lose water. So as soon as we cut out those carbohydrates, then we also release water. When someone decides to go on a low carb diet, not only are they cutting out carbs, but they're cutting out junk food that they used to have. They're cutting out the chips, the cookies, the candies. So that is going to put them in a calorie deficit because they're no longer eating junk food. For me, and for almost all of my clients, and for moms like you, I would never want to prescribe a low carb diet because we need our energy and we need to think clearly. So our brain also needs glucose, and we make 1,000 decisions a day and we need this energy. And if you work out, then I want to make sure that your workouts are fueled and you're actually getting a really great workout and your muscles are looking for glucose for energy when we are working out. So that is another reason why want to make sure my moms get carbs. To make macro counting sound as simple as possible, what I would do if you are looking to start macro counting, open a macro calculating app. There's all kinds of macro calculators that you can find online to figure out what your specific macros are, and you put in how much weight you want to lose. Some macro calculators also ask you if you like to eat low carb, if you like to eat Mediterranean. Some of them will adjust your macros based on your eating preferences. Most of them don't though. If you go to a macro calculator, put in all your information, it's going to spit out how many calories it thinks you should eat for your goals. But not only that, but it'll also spit out how much protein, how many fats, and how many carbs you should eat in a day. And I do custom macro programs for all my clients. We experiment with what's the best ratio for each person. When you track macros, we have to know exactly what we're eating. And so there's a couple ways you can do it. You could do pen to paper and keep a journal. And a lot of people like that. And in fact, I have a special journal that I made for my clients so they could write it out if they needed to. Keeping a food journal is very powerful and is another really good way to gain awareness of the choices that we're making. When you keep that food journal, I also want you to write down how you're feeling at that time, because you can also go back to like, was I stressed? Was I tired? Who was I with? And you can kind of see patterns if you're overeating at a certain time. Another way to do it is by using a macro calculating app. And the most popular one is called MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is an app that's been around a long time. Many of you guys have used it, and it's a great tool to track your macros. I'm going to show you MyFitnessPal app. I'll pull up my account and I'll show you how to track and what to look for if you've never tracked before. All right, so this is my home screen for MyFitnessPal. So on your phone, it's going to look a little bit different. You can add friends, which you can request me as a friend if you want. All of my clients are friends with me because I help monitor their food intake and I review food diaries before our weekly check-ins. Goals. This is where you will set your macro count. If you do not have the premium version and you do the free version, which I do the free version, it works just fine. So see how this is locked? Because if you have the premium, I could set these by the exact gram, but I have the free version, so I can only set these by percentages. So right now, I'm playing around with 1800 as a body recomp number for me, which means losing a little bit of fat and gaining some muscle at the same time. So I have my calories set to 1810, and 40% of my intake is on carbohydrates, 30% fat, and 30% protein. That's where I have it set for me. Each client is different and I make adjustments. When I am tracking macros, I am looking at these three numbers the most, okay? So I'm looking to make sure I get at least 136 grams of protein, at least 60 grams of fat, and at least 181 grams of carbohydrates. When I go to log my food, I'm gonna go to food here. This is what this screen looks like. What's cool about MyFitnessPal is that if you log the same things over and over again, then they will come up really quickly. And on the mobile app, you can actually scan barcodes, so it makes it really easy. For the most accuracy, you should really weigh your food. Even if you're scanning the barcode may say something like 1 serving is 2 ounces, and you just like scan it, boop, I put it in and move on with life. Well, you may have actually eaten more than 2 ounces. Weigh your food, because possibly you could have eaten 4 ounces or 6 ounces. And that's where some people make mistakes when tracking, is that they're not weighing and measuring their food. They're just eyeballing it, or they just scan it, boop, go, and they're not adjusting for serving sizes. Now for add food, breakfast, I'm gonna add a few things that I had. You'll see this in the mobile app too. These are like your most frequent things, and you can add whatever you check mark. So you can see, here's are some of my most recent things that I put in. Then here's a tab for frequent. Look, this is my most frequent thing that I log is coffee mate creamer. And I usually have 3 tablespoons in 1 cup. And yes, I measure those out. If you don't measure them out, likely you're having more than normal. That's one way you could do that, is that you could just check off your recents. Another way is by just searching. I usually start with the brand, Coffee Mate Natural Bliss. Some things to look for if you're just going to do a search. I look for this green check mark, and the green check mark means that MyFitnessPal verified that this entry is correct. Not to say none of these are incorrect, but they could be. Make sure you have that green check mark. Let me just click on Natural Bliss. It'll ask me how many servings I did and what meal do I want to add it to. So I'm going to put 3 servings. I'm going to add it to breakfast. You can make your own categories. As you can see, like I have pre and post workout 1 and pre and post workout 2 because I usually have a pre-workout meal and a post-workout meal. So I wanted these categories in there. So let's go add, actually, let's put this under post-workout 1 because I actually got this after my workout. And I'm going to put, it is a Starbucks grande oat milk latte. And it was really good, by the way. And what I liked about it is that it was only 120 calories. So you see here, it's not all in here. Here's a venti oat milk latte, but that's not what I had. Here is a grande mocha, not it. So in this case, it is not in here. So now what you're going to do next, since you don't see it, I'm going to add the food to the database. And we're going to put the brand restaurant, Starbucks. I know this takes time. Once it's in here, it will always be in here and it'll be automatic, okay? And so you won't have to search for it again. MyFitnessPal has one of the largest food databases out there. It has almost everything, so many restaurants. This drink literally just came out, so it's probably not in there. So I'm going to put a grande oat milk brown sugar latte. So now I have to pivot over. It says it thinks it's already in there. Oh, here it is. I just missed it. Let me click on this and see. Okay, says it is. Now I'm going to double check the nutrition info though. And since I already did this earlier, yes, this is correct. So 120 calories. I looked this up earlier. So this matches 2 grams of protein. Is this data accurate? Yes. No one's confirmed it, but I'm going to confirm it because I looked this up earlier. So now we're going to add this to the food diary. Okay, so now it's there. And now it's going to be in my most recent food so that I can keep track of that. Now down here is where my daily totals are. This green right here tells me that I still need 134 grams of protein for my day. I still need 52 fats. I still need 146 carbs. So this is a running total of where I'm at. A couple ways you can do this. You could pre-plan your whole day, which I know Sherry does. She pre-plans her whole day, and I've done that too. It's cool to like just be laying in bed the night before and pre-plan your day so that you know, you ensure that you get your adequate amount of macros. Or you can scan as you go, which there's nothing wrong with that either. So you would just enter in all your food as you go during the day. Problem with that is sometimes you'll get to like lunchtime and you're like, oh my gosh, I have like 100 more grams of protein to eat. What am I going to do when I just finished lunch? So then you end up having like a protein shake at night or a double serving of protein at dinner. Pre-planning is really going to help you. For me, I eat at least 4 times a day. So I would divide that 134 grams of protein divided by 4 meals. And so that's a good way to look at it. If I know I want to save my carbs for dinner, I may make lunch low carbs. When you pre-enter, when you enter the night before, it gives you some space to know what the next day is going to look like instead of like scrambling the day of. So if you can pre-plan, that works better. Now, my advice for you guys when you first start tracking is that aim for 1 category at a time. And what I mean is aim for like, say, protein for me. If I'm just getting the hang of tracking, I might just make sure I'm hitting my protein number, and then the other things, I'm just going to look at it as data and kind of observe where I'm at. You know, once I'm good with protein, maybe for a week or 2, I might look at the data and say, you know what, I am always over on my fats. So that's the next one I'm going to tackle. The key though is if you are trying to lose weight, which a lot of us are right now, we want to make sure we stay under our calories. So even if these numbers aren't right, or you don't hit your protein, or you went over in fat, or you didn't eat enough carbs, as long as you're under the total calorie goal or right at it, you're good for the day and you are within that calorie deficit. So calorie deficit is the most important part about losing weight. If you don't get these numbers right, it's okay. Just try it again the next day. Look at it as data like you're a scientist and kind of adjust the next day. That is my advice to you guys. So the next one we're going to talk about is an obstacle that a lot of my clients talk about. And they go, well, I just make stuff and I don't have a barcode to scan and I don't know how to track that. So I'm going to show you how to create a recipe in here. And if it's something that you make all the time, then it's going to be in here to pull from. Yes, it might take a few minutes of legwork, but once it's in there, it'll always be in there. It's worth it. It's worth knowing the data. It's worth knowing the numbers. Because if we kind of sort of stay on track, we kind of sort of get results. But if we actually know the information and know how much we're eating, we can control some things. Like if we're entering everything in and we're not losing fat like we'd like to, that's when we can play around with adjustments. And that's something I do for my clients. So create a recipe. You're going to go up to this recipes tab. Some like recent recipes that I made. I'm just going to click on one really quick. So you guys, oh, here's the Mexican turkey frittata from Chef Andrew's thing. I had made this recipe and I created 4 servings out of it. And then if you hit log it, it will go into your MyFitnessPal app. I'm going to create something that I make all the time. That way I can just make this really quick. Import recipe. So that's another thing is you can put a URL from a website, like you go to tasty.com or Skinny Taste. I love that website, Skinny Taste. They have a lot of great recipes in there. If you copy and paste the URL and hit import, it will import the ingredients for you so you don't have to manually type. The only thing is sometimes it's not perfect. So just make sure everything matches if you do that. MyFitnessPal is a really good tool to find out what your starting point is, find out what your baseline is. That is the hard part, right? It can be a shock to figure out like that you are overeating. If you are, a lot of times it's a big shock for me and for a lot of my female clients is that they're under eating their protein. Almost all of my clients that first come to me are not eating enough protein. And so tracking helps us gain awareness. And if we don't know where our starting point is, it's really hard to make changes. Yes, it could be really scary, but if it's something that we ignore for a long time, then it's hard to make changes from there. And if you watch this to the end, I know that making changes to your fitness and nutrition is really important to you. And as an active mom of 3, I also understand how hard it is to do it on your own without support. And that's why I would love for you to join our free community at fitandconfidentmoms.com. There's a whole group of women and busy moms just like you waiting to support you and root for you. So if you join, make sure you say hi and share with us your journey. I'm rooting for you always. Bye-bye.